Broadcasting live from Houston, Texas, and around the world. TV host, best-selling author, and radio personality Brad Gilmore brings you a collection of conversations with stars from movies.
Mark Wahlberg.
Hey, how are you?
The legendary Mr. Christopher Lloyd. Christopher, how are we doing?
I'm doing good. Great introduction.
Television.
Jimmy Fallon joins us this morning. Jimmy, how you doing, my friend?
Good morning. Thank you so much, Brad, for having me. I appreciate this, bud.
Kelly Ripa.
Brad, thank you for having me.
Comedy.
Jay Leno joins us. Jay, how you doing?
Hey, Brad, what's going on?
Gabriel Fluffy Iglesias.
Good morning.
Music.
Lola Monroe.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Grammy Award winner Maya joins us.
How are you?
And more. This is The Collection. Now your host, The Boat, Brad Gilmore.
And he joins me right now. He's an actor and author. You know him from The Daily Show, one of my favorite movies ever, Man of the Year. He is the Grammy Award-winning comedian, and we're talking about the brand new tour, Off the Rails, that's coming to a city near you. The incomparable Mr. Lewis Black joins us. Lewis, how are we doing?
Every day, better and better and better and better. And it would have even been better if the Commanders had won, and they should have, but I just, that they're there to torment. That's what they do. They torment. And I'll feel really good if they're sold to actually someone who knows a little bit about football and how to do that, rather than just a consortium of people, none of whom seem to know anything about football, including Matthew McConaughey, who apparently is the last one who they said is getting involved.
Yeah. It sounds like Matthew McConaughey and Jay-Z are the two that are targeting buying the Washington Commanders. Hey, look, at least I guess I'm assuming you're a Commanders fan. I'm a Texans fan, so we're kind of sharing our misery with one another.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. Yeah. But we've had how long is your guy? Mike, that Snyder's been there way too long. It's awful. I mean, he's awful. And they can't seem to, they finally might be seeming to get rid of him. He's been awful forever. Guy bought Albert Hainsworth for $100 million.
Yeah.
That was the first of the stupids.
The terrible decisions by ownership groups seem to just run throughout my sports fandom. Thankfully, hopefully things turn around for your Commanders. It looks like they're going to. I just don't know how people like Snyder or even a James Dolan, who's owned the Knicks and sports franchise in New York. I just don't know how they continue to do it after it's so obvious that they should not continue, but they just do. I guess when you're in that position of power.
And you have that much money, and they need you for whatever reason. And the other thing is with, you'd think that the rest of the folks in the league would go, no, enough's enough. We're sorry, you're out. You have to sell the team. You know?
Hopefully there's a decision made soon for your sake and really for the benefit of football fans all around, man. But, I have so much I really want to talk to you about. As far as your tour goes, Off the Rails, you can get tickets right now at lewisblack.com. That's LEWIS black.com. You said you're on the road right now. You have dates into next summer right now listed on your website. What has the road been like? What has the road been like with this new act that you're touring around?
Yeah, no, it's been good. It's been a lot of fun. And, I'm dealing with, folks who have not seen me in 2 years or 3 years. So, they've been great. And it's been terrific. I'm like kind of stunned. They're just so happy to get out, and I'm so happy. We're all so happy to be out that it's really been terrific.
Now, did you develop this? I'm assuming is it all new act? Is this show that people are seeing, is this all new material that you've worked on over the last couple of years, or is it kind of a mix of some new, some old?
Well, I ended up May 15th was I did a new special, so that and then since then, and then I went back on the road really in September, and basically have started to put together what will be my next special. So I'd say 80%. No one has seen anything in the places I'm going of what I'm doing. Nobody. I mean, it's all new to them, and then a portion of that act is still part of the special, and that'll be gone probably in the next month.
Let me ask you, you talked about you had the special drop earlier this year, you're working on the next one. There's kind of, I guess, two schools of thought in comedy. You would know better than I. There's the George Carlin, as I'm having a new special every year, and then there's the Jay Leno of I'm never doing a special ever because I don't want anyone hearing this material that I've worked on for years. Where do you fall kind of on that? Do you feel like Jay's got a point? Like if you put it out there on Netflix or wherever, that material's gone, you have to start crafting new jokes, or you more on the Carlin side of things?
I'm on the Carlin side. I got to come up with something new or I'll lose my mind. I mean, it's all about coming up with what's the next joke. I mean, this stuff, once I get a joke and once I get it to the point, sometimes afterwards it's like I get it to the point that it should be, and then like 3 weeks later I'm working, I go, oh, that's what it is. Even with that, my feeling is always that it's the more excited I am about working on material, the more excited the audience will be, and I don't need to worry about it. And then a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, sometimes I go back and do it, and I remember it, and neither does the audience. So it's not like anything lost. I write on stage, so that for me, it's where I process and get the act to where I want to get it done. So. That to me is what always keeps it fresh.
So are you saying you have maybe when you say you write on stage, you're saying you have maybe a premise of a joke in your head and you say, okay, when I get up there, I'm going to try to work through this in front of the crowd tonight. Is that what you mean?
That's how nuts I am. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you're working really, without a net there, Louis.
It's crazy, but I kind of ended up with an audience that gets it. So, and I kind of know, if it's not working, I certainly bail on it quickly and then move on to something I know that works. And sometimes I just, I'm able to find ways to apologize to them that they find funny. I know I think if you're just honest about it, if it sucks, you got to turn to the audience and go, this is going to be pretty good in 2 weeks. And I'm sorry you had to sit through it.
But, sometimes that was like, I can remember watching monologues from The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, where there were a lot of times the jokes just went south, and that was the audience almost enjoyed being in on that more than the punchline of the joke would have been.
Exactly, and that's the other thing. As long as the audience knows you're conscious of them being there, as opposed to ignoring them, I think that makes a difference. And there are a lot of comics, that really pay attention to where the audience are. And, it's kind of like, it's like it's always that thing that something will happen in the audience, right? That night, somebody drops a bottle or something happens or they yell something or something unusual occurs, and you talk about it for, 3 to 5 minutes, and then all of the material you worked on for months, they don't care. They go, boy, that was the best. Boy, that 5 minutes you did about that guy, yelling strudel. Oh, boy, that was tremendous. Because that's a lot of the times I yell stuff, and it's kind of like I go, did you just say strudel? I mean, seriously. And of course they didn't say strudel, but that's what I heard.
And then you just go off of the strudel thing.
Yeah, exactly. I go up on strudel and how to make it. And why would you be? You could bring some for everybody.
You say be aware of the audience, and I guess I'm curious because of you're literally going everywhere in this tour, off the rails. Tickets available at lewisblack.com. That's LEWIS black.com, including Hawaii, parts of the South. You're going to be in Alabama. You're going to be in the Northeast. You're going to be in the West Coast. Do you have to alter your act at all depending on the city or the region that you're in? Is there any kind of tailoring to that audience?
No, there's certain things, I've traveled enough to know that I was in Texas, or about Arizona. You say things about Arizona, you say, I couldn't live here because whatever is going on amongst your amongst your politicians is crazy, and they get, they laugh, they get it, they know we're watching. So I do it, I'll switch around stuff, but mostly I'd say 97% of what I do is the same because they're all watching the same things. I might do something a little different, in terms of if I'm talking about religion, I might deal with it in a different way in the South. I'll do the same thing, but I'll kind of come at it at a different angle, and it's the way that actually the act improves because you've come at it from a different angle. You go, oh wow, well, look at that! I discovered this and this and this, but I stay with what I know. You know what I mean? And plus, the big change is once we went to cable, everybody gets the same stuff. It's all pouring in, They know the difference between all of these things now, MSNBC and CNN and Fox and, all the nonsense.
Yeah, that's all it is, man. It's a bunch of nonsense. I definitely agree with you there. It's like T-Mobile, right? It's just all a bunch of nonsense.
Yes, it's all a bunch of nonsense. T-Mobile.
Oh no.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, you obviously are such an entertaining guy. That's why you've been able to tour for as long as you have and been on the top of your game. Rantcast is something that a lot of people love, and I know you've done a lot of episodes of it. Do you still enjoy doing the podcast?
Yeah, sometimes I don't, but most of it. Sometimes I'm not. The introductions drive me a little crazy because I like talking to people there. I like that people are in the room. I like that's the way I kind of get where the funny is. That's where I can hear where the funny should be. So when I'm doing the intros to these rantcasts, I'm really by myself talking to myself, which is, I think, mildly psychotic.
Well, yeah, sure. There's a degree to it, right? There's a degree to it,
yeah.
But to me, to have that ability, like, where did you kind of hone that craft? In all honesty, like, I'm being sincere, to just be given a topic and be able to go off about it.
I guess it's practice. I mean, literally, it was. I discovered, once I discovered that I am funniest when I'm angry, then everything fell into place, and then it all started to get really onto a different thing because once I started figuring, once I realized that, then I started. Then it became what I was. It became the place I went to. So it was. Every night became a lesson in it. So I was learning it, and now I've got a pretty good grasp of it, so that I can kind of. It's like it's a muscle that I learned to. That's the best way to describe it. It's a muscle in my brain called anger, and it really got stronger and stronger and stronger. But it's performance anger. It's not like if I was really angry, I'd probably be dead.
Yeah, I mean, because you can get pretty volatile, on stage and in these podcasts that you do. I'm sure that would be a hard thing to keep up 24/7.
Yeah. It would be. People always say, "Are you like this all the time?" I go, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "Mostly, I got to take a nap to do it. That's the problem."
Yeah, I got to work myself up to the performance of it. Which is actually something really interesting to me. Obviously, you did Inside Out. From what I understand, you're going to be doing Anger again and Inside Out too.
We are. I just did the first recording of my character, and I think it's going to be good.
Well, the last one won an Oscar.
I'm not saying that just to say, yeah, I know, and I think what from where we're starting looks like they're going in the right direction. So I'm kind of excited about it. I love doing it. What I really love is working with the world that they created inside that girl's head and outside her head. It's really quite something.
Oh,
they're really smart. They're way smart.
Oh, it's such a genius idea. And the people at Pixar, they're kind of a can't miss organization. They know exactly what they're doing, and they go out there and they execute. But for you as a comic, I remember I had the late great Gilbert Gottfried on the show a few months ago.
My friend, yeah.
Yeah, and it's such a great person to talk to, awesome guy. But we talked about, one of his famous roles was playing the parrot in the movie Aladdin with Robin Williams, who was the genie. And I guess I just didn't know how the voiceover process went for animation films. And he said that, they were never even in the same room, and he was kind of stuck to what he had to do as a comic. To not have that feedback, like you said, you like people in the room. Is it difficult to kind of get into that character and know if it's working?
No, that's different for me because I really, first time I did it, and doing other, animation that, they cover, all I got to do is come up with, how do you read this line? What am I really? What's my, what's my intention? What is the character trying to say, and to say it that way? And then they do all the rest of the work, so you don't have to worry about where your body is in space or what you're dressed in, and really moving around. They do all the other work. You're doing really, so you can devote 100% to really what's the 20% which is the 30% of which is what's coming out of your mouth, and you don't need, and they cover everything else, so they've already figured this stuff out. It's insane, that's what makes them that smart. They've kind of already figured out everything around you. At first I thought, especially with the Pixar thing, that it would be that's got to be a bit difficult. And then I realized, no, they really know what they're doing with this. And, it's from the time they hire you until it hits the theaters is 5 years.
Wow. So, I mean, they're doing I guess you can't, it's not like you're doing a 90-day shoot on some indie. This is a huge movie that takes thousands of people to create.
Yes, it is. It's a big difference, and you don't have to. All of a sudden you're not. I'm not really. I don't really need the audience out there, because they're basically. It's once you're doing something that's theatrical or dramatic or comedic in terms of animation or even a movie, it's you've got the eye is that camera, and so you don't have to worry about it. They know that you got somebody watching for the funny, and so it's and if it's well written, you don't have to worry about a thing. This thing that's the line that I had. Now San Francisco good. Now you've ruined pizza. I mean, it works. You just know that it's going to work.
You're again touring around the world for the Off the Rails tour, or around the country for the Off the Rails tour. It's lewisblack.com, LEWIS black.com. I got one more thing for you. I was listening to Conan O'Brien this morning. He was actually on Howard Stern, and they were talking about comedy in this era, and mainly talking about late night. But Conan said something interesting. He said the hyper-politicalization, right, of news media, people I think are more politically aware than ever, has hurt comedy, because the late night hosts and comedians feel as though that they have to focus on it. Would you agree with that sentiment or not?
I don't. He may be right in terms of comedy, not comedy in general, but comedy in terms of late night. Yeah, I do think that they end up focusing on it, and because it's hard to get away from it, because it's really the way in which they took this election that we've got, and they've done nothing but make it. It's either one day it's a horse race, the next day it's a football game, the next day we're playing. It's everything. It's just. They've taken the basic that politics is about ideas. It's not about winning and losing, except the day of the vote. The rest of the time, it's about ideas, and they don't discuss those ideas. Nobody asks the question of, well, you're going to get rid of crime. What are you going to do? What specifically are you going to do? And since those questions aren't asked, and since the news media treats it the way in which the politicians treat it, which is with a grain of salt, we end up with this nonsense.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem. And it's realizing, I mean, I don't, for myself, it's really a matter of trying to get, to find out what, each time I'm going out there, how do you deal with this? And how do you deal with the politics of the situation that we're living in? And that's what I look for. So it took a long time for me to realize that the best way to, like 2 or 3 things ago was when I first started touring after the former leader Trump had won. All these people were like crazy, either for him or against him. It was like nuts. So I had to go with, basically I left that behind. It was trying to figure out, how do I start the act? How do I talk about it? And I said, that basically that we shouldn't really be that upset because we finally have what we wanted, which has now changed in a way. But when I started doing this act, I said, we all finally have what we want, which is 2-day free shipping. So you take it out of their hands so they can't, and everybody can agree on 2-day free shipping. So shut up.
That's the brilliance right there. That's the brilliance of Lewis Black, and that's why you got to see him on tour right now. LewisBlack.com. It's off the rails. He's going to be in Ohio, North Carolina, New Jersey, Connecticut, New York, Florida, all up here in the coming weeks. Lewis, it's a pleasure to talk to you. I hope the tour is incredible, sold out to the rafters, and much success to you.
Well, thanks. And just one other thing I would add, if it's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Just that we were talking about the rantcast, that folks should know if they go to that I do those rants like live on stage from whenever I'm performing. If they go to lewisblack.com, you can find out. They'll get in touch with you, let you know when I'm hitting the air. So, and like if you, let's say you're in the Eastern time zone and I've got a 10 o'clock show, or and the show starts at 8 at 10 o'clock. I'll be on stage generally reading the rants written by other people. I don't write the rants. I interpret the rants and talk about them and discuss them and give them a context. Sometimes I don't even need to, because like I was in Dallas recently and everything that came out, everything that these people sent in was just, it worked. Just unbelievable. It was like having the Daily Show folks writing it. It was really well done, and so folks should know too that they can not only watch it, and it's free, so they can see it on their laptop, their phone, on their PC, anything, and then it's basically, it's free. We send it, and it goes throughout the world.
Okay, yeah.
So you can be sitting, you can be watching it, and there'll be somebody from Thailand commenting. You can't beat that. About somebody yelling about chunky peanut butter. And you can write about anything. And so if you go there, if you see it and there's something that's upsetting you, and it can be vitally important or it can be meaningless, just go ahead and start, get it off your chest, send it to me, and I'll help you get it out there.
Hey, the rant is due, and you can go check that out again at lewisblack.com. Lewis, really appreciate it, man.
Oh, thank you for your time. It was a pleasure, and good luck to you. Good luck to your football team.
My God. Well,
I understand.
We'll need more than luck.
You haven't got a bad defense.
Well, that's never been the problem. The problem's been everything else. The problem's been everything else.
I know it should be. Take care of yourself.
All right, take care, Lewis. Thank you so much.
Broadcasting live from Houston, Texas, and around the world. TV host, best-selling author, and radio personality Brad Gilmore brings you a collection of conversations with stars from movies.
Mark Wahlberg.
Hey, how are you?
the legendary Mr. Christopher Lloyd. Christopher, how we doing?
I'm doing good. Great introduction.
Television.
Jimmy Fallon joins us this morning. Jimmy, how you doing, my friend?
Good morning. Thank you so much, Brad, for having me. I appreciate this, bud.
Kelly Ripa.
Brad, thank you for having me.
Comedy.
Jay Leno joins us. Jay, how you doing?
Hey, Brad, what's going on?
Gabriel Fluffy Iglesias.
Good morning.
Music.
Lola Monroe.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Grammy Award winner Maya joins us.
How are you?
And more. And more. This is The Collection. Now your host, The Boat, Brad Gilmore.
And he joins me right now. We're talking about season 3 of Home Economics, which is on ABC Wednesdays at 8:30 Central. He is the man, the guy. He's the executive producer and the star of the show. Topher Grace joins us this morning. Topher, congratulations on all the show's success.
I want that intro every morning when I get up. That's the right intro, man.
Hey, man, well, look, we're talking about Home Economics. This show is on ABC, for people who don't know. You're in the 3rd season, and the show's got a real vibe to it. It's real fun. I binge-watched a lot of it over the last few days. Tell the people who aren't familiar so far, I mean, season 3 is a big deal, but tell the people about Home Economics, kind of the premise of it.
Hey, thanks a lot for checking it out. It's one of my favorite things I've done. It's just so much fun. It's about siblings, adult siblings, which shows aren't usually about. Although a lot of grown-ups have siblings, and one of them is super rich, one of them is kind of very middle class, and one of them is kind of struggling to get by. They all live in the same city, and this year we just found out we have another sibling. So in a show that's about siblings, we found out we have this half sibling, and that's what this super size kind of Thanksgiving episode we're doing is about. Is her meeting the family. It's really interesting, and also it's really funny because it's so interesting.
Now, as far as the show goes, you star in it, and there's an executive producer credit to your name. What does that EP credit bring? Do you have with great power and bringing that great responsibility, or what exactly does the executive producer title do for you?
No. There's very little power. The thing that I was really obsessed about, because I've been on a TV show and done that before, it was such a great dream team, is I just really want to be a part of the casting of the show. So when I started, I got to sit in and meet everyone and kind of say, like, let's go in this direction, or let's look at this person. And what was so important to me was just getting the most incredible group of people, because you wind up spending years of your life with these people if the thing works out. And it's because of those great people that you get to spend years together. And I just feel so lucky that I got to be on a second dream team. I'm like fanning out every day over my castmates.
Yeah, you have to nail it, right? I mean, the dynamic has to be there. I'm sure like big names probably come in, or names that we would all know come in to read or audition for these shows. And is it hard not to just be attracted to the big name, or were you looking for, hey, it has to be the right fit?
That's actually a really good question. No one's ever asked me that, but the truth is, yeah, there were some people like that who came in who I would have felt a little more comfortable, especially at the beginning before the show's going. You go, who am I going to be on this poster with? And we started to realize the writing is so good. It's really, the writers do such a great job, but it's very subtle. And it was really hard for a lot of people to do. And I'm glad the actors who are on the show now didn't know this at the time, but they were the only ones who could have done it. Like, we looked at so many hundreds of people, and the people who were on the show are the only ones for that role who kind of got the tone of it. It's a kind of a very subtle show for a network show. So yeah, it was a real search, but then you go, every time I look at someone, I go, I know this is the best person in the world for this role because I helped look,
Oh man, that's incredible. It's good that you were able to find that camaraderie, because you can feel it on the show. I mean, the way that the dialogue goes, kind of the vibe of the show, the pacing, the rhythm of it. You could tell that y'all, not only are you in your 3rd season, but these were the right characters, or the right actors for the right characters. This is a nerdy question, so forgive me if you don't have the exact answer for it, but I have to know. I love how the shows are titled, and that might be a weird thing to hear, but the shows will have like the name, for instance, one of the episodes is called Mickey Ears, 1999. And as far as the dollar sign, where was that idea come from? Because I really think it's a really cool thing.
Well, it's the Hayworth family. It's not a coincidence that the name Worth is in their name. It's the entry point to the show is that they're all at different places economically, but you start to find out they're all kind of in the same place emotionally. They all really love each other, even though there's huge wealth gaps between them, including this new sibling who shows up is very different than the other three of them. But to me, it's the writers kind of putting value on different things. Our season finale last year was called Trip to Space, $1 million, but we've had titles that are as low as $2. That's what's so great about a show like this. It's about, there's no one that the show doesn't speak to, and that's important when you're on a show that's being seen by so many people.
Home Economics again on ABC Wednesdays at 8:30 Central Time. Make sure everybody goes checks it out. I have a question for you, man, because one of the movies that I've really loved that you were in is a movie called Take Me Home Tonight. It was kind of based in the 80s. I'm not a child of the 80s, but I love everything to do with the 80s. So it would be my question to you, Mr. Topher Grace. What are your favorite 80s movies of all time?
First of all, that was the first thing I produced, so I really, really appreciate the question, and I love that movie. It was so much fun. Gosh, probably the most fun I ever had on a movie. Favorite, so I would put that at the top, but the 80s movies we were trying to replicate when we did that were those John Hughes movies, 16 Candles and The Breakfast Club, and, movies that were really trying to not just be teen movies, but kind of say something more. But as I get older, the more I love older stuff. I feel like the minute I had kids, I stopped understanding pop culture today entirely. And now I just I'm a nostalgic old man, basically.
So, do you have 80s go-tos? Are you a Back to the Future guy? Do we like Fletch? Are we a Clue the movie person? Where are we in the 80s?
It's my favorite film of all time. I love Back to the Future, but I don't see that as an 80s movie. It's so classic. I would say favorite 80s movie is probably, I don't know. I just watched Poltergeist again. That's really good. Cobra Kai's got me feeling that Karate Kid thing. Come on, I love it all. I even love the bad stuff now that I've gotten older.
Me too, man. Me too. I was all in on a Jay Leno movie the other day called Collision Course that I'd never seen before. So I like even the bad 80s stuff, man. But hey, Home Economics Season 3 is going down on ABC right now. Have you seen Collision Course?
Yeah, you're talking, it's him and Pat
Morita.
from the Karate Kid name. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy movie, man. Home Economics Season 3 is going down right now on ABC. Topher Grace, I got time for one more question for you. When I was growing up, a movie that I watched, and it was the first time I ever saw kind of an actor portraying themselves, at least that I can think of, was when you were in the Ocean's movies, 11 and 12. And your appearance in Ocean's 12 is really a fan of mine because, you make some real insider kind of meta references. How did you get involved with those Ocean's movies?
Well, first of all, most fun shooting days of all time, because to get to go and hang out with that cast for a couple of days was insane each time I did it. The first film I did was called Traffic, which is a movie that Steven Soderbergh directed. He also directed the Ocean's 11 trilogy. And so Traffic was, I played like a crack addict. It was a very different, dark type of drama. But when we had finished that, he asked me, would I come play myself in this movie? And I thought, I don't really understand. People weren't doing it as much back then. And I said, sure, as long as I can play the biggest douchebag version of myself. And I did. He's not a good guy, even though I'm playing myself.
Yeah, man. Love those movies. Love your appearance in them. But again, Home Economics, everybody. I encourage everyone to go check out this show. It's a whole lot of fun, man. The dialogue and the writing is so good, and the cast is great as well. Topher Grace, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Man, I really appreciate it. Thanks for checking it out. And yeah, it's probably the most fun I've ever had making something. So thanks, man.
Broadcasting live from Houston, Texas, and around the world. TV host, Best-selling author and radio personality Brad Gilmore brings you a collection of conversations with stars from movies.
Mark Wahlberg,
Hey, how are you?
the legendary Mr. Christopher Lloyd. Christopher, how we doing?
I'm doing good. Great introduction.
Television.
Jimmy Fallon joins us this morning. Jimmy, how you doing, my friend?
Good morning. Thank you so much, Brad, for having me. I appreciate this, bud.
Kelly Ripa.
Brad, thank you for having me.
Comedy.
Jay Leno joins us. Jay, how you doing?
Hey, Brad, what's going on?
Gabriel Fluffy Iglesias.
Good morning.
Music.
Lola Monroe.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Grammy Award winner Maya joins us.
How are you?
And more. And more. This is The Collection. Now your host, The Boat, Brad Gilmore.
And he joins us this morning. We're talking about the National Dog Show on Thanksgiving Day on NBC. He is the incomparable Mr. John O'Hurley. John, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much. I've always thought of myself as comparable rather than incomparable. That's all right. I appreciate that.
No one compares to you. You've had such a legendary career. And, I mean, from your time in Seinfeld, Family Feud, books that you've written, obviously you own part of the J. Peterman catalog, but let's talk about the National Dog Show because, correct me if I'm wrong, this is one of the highest rated television events year over year. Is that correct?
It's absolutely correct. We'll have a global audience of about 30 million people, and it's become a remarkable Thanksgiving tradition for 21 years now. And I can't believe I've kept the show alive for 21 years. Usually I kill them after the first season.
30 million people in today's time, you can't get 30 million people to do, like worldwide, to do anything collectively anymore. I mean, everything's so fragmentized. There's so many options on television to YouTube, but it's insane.
It's a very good point. That's a very good point. It's, the pie has gotten sliced so thin, and every year it gets thinner and thinner and thinner, and ratings go down and down and down, but ours just keep going up and up and up. And I think that underscores a wonderful piece of programming on the most wonderful family day of the year. And it gives something that everybody can watch on television, whether you're 4 or you're 94. There's something there for you. And because, America has a love affair with their dogs. And every year there are more and more dogs registered, and more rescues are brought into homes. And so, again, it underscores just our love affair with our dogs and what they bring to us.
How did you get involved with the National Dog Show initially? Like, what was the impetus for coming together and doing this?
It's a very funny story. John Miller, who was the head of NBC Sports, took home the classic film Best in Show, which was the parody of the Westminster Dog Show. And he watched it over the weekend back in 2002. He watched it twice, and he laughed as hard as he could at both times, and came into the morning meeting at NBC on Monday there, and he said, I know what we're going to do with that 2-hour slice between the parade and football. He says, we're going to do a dog show. And they about laughed him out of the office. But by the end of the day, he had cornered the Kennel Club of Philadelphia for one of their shows and put Purina in as a presenting sponsor. And on Tuesday morning, he called me in Los Angeles. I picked up the phone, and I said hello, and he said, woof, woof. And that was it. That's how it started.
And it's been going ever since. Now, you are obviously a dog lover. You had a book come out called The Perfect Dog a few years ago.
I have 3 books out, yeah.
3 books, yeah. So, I mean, talk to me about your kind of, I know obviously dogs are man's best friend and things of that nature. I've always been a pet owner. I've always been able to pull this off. I've always been able to have a dog and a cat at the same time. I don't know how I've done it, but I've always been able to pull that off. But really,
you mean under one rooftop you have red states and blue states?
Yes. I have brought our divided country together. It's like the black and white cookie from Seinfeld, right? Well, we've brought them together. But to me, like for you seem to have such a love and admiration for these beautiful, majestic animals that are dogs. Where does that come from?
Well, I think I've always had a dog. So, as I wrote in my first book, I'm a better person with a dog in my lap. And that's the truth. I think they round out our brittle edges there. And, I think they do so much, and yet they know not what they do. You're the rock star in their lives. And no matter how stressful your day was, they take a lot of the load off when you walk in the door.
The National Dog Show is on NBC Thanksgiving Day. John O'Hurley, the host of the show. I mean, to go to this, though, I love stories in Hollywood about how roles almost never were. For example, Christopher Lloyd, who played Doc Brown in the Back to the Future films, when he was sent the script for Back to the Future, he threw it in the garbage immediately because he said, I just want to be a theater actor. I don't want to do film anymore. His wife said, hey, maybe you should just give it a chance. Leave no stone unturned. And then he became the iconic Doc Brown. For you, if I'm correct, you initially turned down the role of Jay Peterman on the Seinfeld show. Is that right?
Well, I had a series, a sitcom on ABC that was canceled on a Wednesday or Tuesday morning. And they said, don't bother coming to work. We pulled the plug. That's kind of the way they do it. And I went out to dinner that night with my manager, trying to take the cancellation as personally as I possibly could, crying in my beer. And Larry David's office called and said, we have this guest star role. We heard John's show got canceled. Would he be interested? It's a fun role. It's all his if he wants it. And I said to my manager, I said, tell him no. I'm still licking my wounds over, canceled today. And so that was the way it was left. The following morning, my manager called me and said, I never called them and they're expecting you. So 10:30, you have a table reading. So I went over there, and I always allow myself 24 hours to mourn anything. So that was just enough to blow it out of my system. And I was over at Seinfeld, and the rest is history. If I had said no and he had called them, I would have disappeared into a cultural vacuum.
Well, one of the things I think made your portrayal of the Jay Peterman character so iconic was the line deliveries. I love how actors make choices to deliver the dialogue. It's one thing for someone like a Larry David or Jerry Seinfeld to come up with the dialogue, but delivering that's where the key comes through. And I called you incomparable earlier, but this might be the first time that anyone's ever compared you to a professional wrestler, because there was a pro wrestler back in the day named Jake Roberts, and Jake the Snake. And during that era, all the wrestlers were yelling at the top of their lungs, but he spoke very quietly and drew people in, right? He spoke softly so people would listen. And your delivery reminds me so much of that. You draw people into the joke instead of being huge and over-performative. You deliver it so expertly. Where did that line delivery idea come from?
Well, when they first gave me when I went over that day they hadn't finished the script. I mean, they were the most disorganized show on television. They had so they about half the script written, but they handed me the Peterman catalog, which was what we parodied on the show. And for those of you, if you go to jpeterman.com, you'll see the actual catalog online that we parodied. And it's like a Hemingway novel with about an Oxford button-down with a price, size, and availability attached. So it always has this wonderful, story attached to it. And but it's always, the elegance of that time when, everything was singular. And so I took a little bit, I read through the catalog and I said, well, this sounds a little bit like a 40s radio drama combined with a little bit of a bad Charles Perrault. And so I think that's kind of where the genesis of the character was.
During your time on Seinfeld, obviously it was the biggest show in the world. I had a friend who was a day player in Seinfeld. He was in the Soup Nazi episode, and he just talks about how even he had no lines or dialogue. The camera just came on his face one day, and he said next day everybody recognized him. It was that powerful of a show. Did you feel the power of the show when you were on it?
I probably was more anxious about doing that taping of that first show than I have ever been in my life. Yeah, I did. Because, it was getting 40 million people. And for the life of me, I couldn't understand why. Because what I learned about that show was it's a different style of comedy. It wasn't where you were setting up for the punchlines. It was... It basically was a different style. You had to play every scene as though it was a drama from, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. And then if you played the scene dramatically, the scene was funny because you were getting passionate about something that was absolutely just niche humor.
Yeah, such an iconic role. We're talking to John O'Hurley. The National Dog Show goes down on Thanksgiving Day. Be a part of the 30 million people worldwide who are watching the Dog Show on NBC Thanksgiving. Last thing for you, John, because back in May, my wife and I took a trip to go to New York to see Chicago on Broadway. It was the where Pamela Anderson was portraying Roxy Hart. We had such a great time. The movie, directed by Rob Marshall, was one of my favorites. I love seeing it in person. Now, you've played the iconic Billy Flynn for over 2,000 performances in Chicago. Is that correct?
I have, and it's one of my favorite things. It's one of the favorite things I do in my career.
I think Billy Flynn's one of the great characters ever. I mean, on stage or screen.
I think it's one of the great, just absolutely epically written characters. He makes the greatest entrance and the greatest exit in Broadway history for a male actor.
Out of all the songs and the musical numbers that Billy Flynn has, I mean, there's, We Both Reach for the Gun. There's the All I Care About Is Love, Razzle Dazzle. Which was your favorite when it was coming up in the show? You're like, oh, I can't wait to get out there and do this one tonight.
I loved Razzle Dazzle because it was such the lyrics were written so perfectly. Just wonderful word pictures in the song. They were so good, not only at melody, but also their lyrics. And I was just, every time I do that, I love it. And I still do it I wrote a one-man musical there that I still tour around the country. And that's the last thing that's the last act or the last number I do in the show.
From being on stage and screen, I mean, it's both acting, but you're stretching different muscles. Do you have a preference?
Oh, I do. I much prefer stage, because I'll tell you why. There's an authenticity to it. That at 7:30 I show up, and 8 o'clock the curtain goes up. And when that conductor's baton drops, there are no retakes, there's no nothing. You're all the way through. But here's the secret. I know something that the audience doesn't know. I know that at 10:30 at night, they're going to be standing on their feet and screaming and applauding. And so my job is to take them through the journey of getting there. And that's the joy of it, that you've really changed you've just changed their life and made it time well spent. And then the nice part about it is at 10:45, I'm at my favorite restaurant having dinner.
Can't beat that. John O'Hurley joins us this morning. NBC, the National Dog Show, Thanksgiving Day. John, just let the people know, why should they check out the National Dog Show on Thanksgiving Day?
Well, it's a family tradition, and I promise you, at the end of the day, the dogs don't care who won, so it's not like football where everybody gets all upset. Because the offense wasn't what they were supposed to be, or the defense didn't hold up what they were supposed to do. The dogs don't care. They just had a really, really good day. And there's something in it for everybody. And you can sit there and hug the dog that's on the sofa there watching it with you, and they'll say 2 hours well spent.
Well, there you go. It all goes down Thanksgiving Day. John O'Hurley, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Great to talk to you as always.